And I think also that the thing to note about this too, which a lot of people just will not accept this truth, but it is true because we talked about it in a different way, right? You said that emotionally a man can just flip a switch and go to having sex, and but a woman, that's not the case, right? And so that also plays out when we say when people don't like this truth, but sex does affect men and women differently. A man can have casual sex and not have, and again, it comes down to the hardness thing, but there's also more to it in the sense that the detriments on him are not as severe as a woman because she has to get into an emotional state for it to be in the right place. Otherwise, it's a violation of herself, right? If she's doing it just for an esteem boost, if there's not a true connection there.
Right.
And she knows it and she feels it, and it does have a detrimental effect. And so that's why it's not a judgy
healing
thing.
Anything too.
Right.
It's a Band-Aid. Like that's why I compared it to alcohol. Like people, when they drink alcohol and they go get drunk, they're not fixing any of their problems.
Right.
They're just numbing themselves. And that's what that is as well too. Like they're trying to fix themselves. They're like, oh, if I go home with this guy and he looks at me and treats me well for the night and we do this, I'll feel better about myself because I'll feel wanted or whatever the thing that she's missing, she's trying to get.
Yeah.
But it's temporary.
Yeah.
And what she doesn't realize is that if she gives herself those things, or she meets somebody who helps her realize those things and they're in a relationship, that will actually heal her and get her to a place where she doesn't need even the person she's with's validation, but she'll want it because she has that connection and she'll want to feel wanted by someone that she actually cares about, not some guy she found on a dating app or at a bar for the night.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And there's all kinds of stuff that people will say about pair bonding and stuff like that. And there's some truth to some of these things, but they use them as weapons in order to shame people.
Yeah.
And that doesn't solve any problems. It doesn't, it's all about...
Because nobody is broken beyond repair.
Right.
Nobody is.
Because I tell guys all the time about the body count thing. I'm like, look, there was a period of time where you were a dork, where you were like a virgin, a dorky virgin. Okay, and maybe you're a stud now, whatever. You want a woman to judge you by your past and be like, oh well, this guy used to be a nerd, so no thanks, I'll pass. Like he's just No, you wouldn't want to be judged by you. You want to be judged by who you are now. Right. And you can look at someone's past. Obviously, if someone's been a junkie in their past, you might want to say, well, let me double check. Let me make sure before. I'm not just going to trust that they're clean and they're not, that their life has changed around. So yeah. So
you take it into consideration, but you don't use it to base everything on the now.
But Mike's Killer Bread. I mean, everybody's buying Mike's Killer Bread. Mike,
where is this coming
Mike's
from?
killer. Mike went to prison for 20 years, came out, made bread. So you're buying.
Is that real though?
I don't think he killed people. It's called Mike's Killer Bread. But he
actually went to jail.
He did go to jail. He sold the brand, but Mike's Killer Bread came from literally a guy that went to prison for 20 years or whatever for some hard crimes. It was violent crimes for sure. And then he came out and he started.
He makes some good bread.
Yeah, but people, they forgave him in order to eat their sandwiches. So, it's like you can't just keep on holding people's past against them and think that they're a broken person. No one wants that. And no one will ever respond to that message. No one will ever listen to that message and say, you're right. I'm broken beyond repair. And now I agree with you. And so if you're trying to push that message, it's never going to work. So, I agree. But yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse on this topic.
Well, I had to throw that in.
Yeah. No, that's good. It's good. But what else were we gonna so the first date thing.
Yeah, not
yeah, when should you have sex?
I would, if you really trying to get it in, you can wait.
Yeah.
A few dates. But you have to have a guy invest in you as a woman because you don't know what the truth is, unfortunately, with a lot of guys. You go on a great first date, you never hear from him the next day. And then you're like, what? And there's nothing even inherently wrong, but maybe they were dating a bunch of other women and they went off with someone else. So it's like...
Or they're really good. They're good at seducing and
That's true. Or maybe it was just a game for him. So it's like, it just makes sense for any woman to have a guy invest... in you before you do those things. And like I said, that's why some women have to a date minimum. I'm not saying necessarily have a date minimum. Like I said, I would say 3 dates is kind of like a general rule, but like you'll know.
Yeah, you can't.
That's why if it's the first date and it feels though like you've been on 3 already and you feel the connection and you want to go ahead for it, I'm not saying don't do that, and I'm not saying that there aren't people out there who are married and happy who had sex on the first date.
Yeah.
But you know, also at the same time, if that's the person for you, he's going to wait 3 dates.
Yeah.
Like,
and just don't be stupid and tell guys you have a 3 date.
Yes. Cause then he's like, all right, okay, then I just 1, 2, 3. Here.
It's like, all right, we're going to McDonald's and then we're going to go to Burger King and now we're going to go.
Don't tell him. He'll be like, it's technically
and then we're going to go
dates.
to Denny's to get a grand slam.
A home run. Yeah, no. But, so don't ever tell him. Just have it as like your rule. And like also it's like if you have respect for yourself, which I know women do, and I know even when they make the mistakes, they still do.
Right.
Then just treat it like that. Treat it like, you know, like I am not going to give myself to this person until he's proven that he's interested in me. And I need to see that. Like the words, you don't listen to a guy's words on the first few dates. No offense to guys. But you have to follow the actions.
Yeah.
Like if he's setting up dates and he's, you know, taking you to a place that you mentioned you like seafood and he picked a seafood place and he's on time and he's acting like a gentleman and he's doing those things and he's done that consistently, then, you know, like you can kind of make a good judgment based on that. But you can't go on the words. You can't be like, oh, like, you know, he's telling you all the right things. Like he has to show you the things.
Yeah. And I did this guy interviewed me on his channel and he was talking about, we got into kind of this subject and he was actually like, he was really like, I mean, because he was pretty religious and he was like, yeah, you know, guys shouldn't even really be just doing this on the first date as well.
I agree too.
And I was like, I tried to argue with him a little bit and then I was like, nah, you know what? You're actually probably right. I mean, it really is probably better. Like, you know, I can see that viewpoint. That makes a lot of sense because it's like, you know, I mean, people do make the argument and say, okay, well, if you think it's damaging to women, then you're participating in the damage, which is a valid argument. That's pretty hard to counter. And then also just the idea that, you keep something that should be sacred and, you know, because, you know, how do you treat this thing, right? Do you treat it lightly or do you treat it as a serious thing?
Which I feel like when you are single, people do treat sex lightly. You know what I mean? Because it is different. Like you don't have that relationship to have that deep connection.
Right.
So I get where it is treated more lightly when people are single. I'm not saying they should.
That's the question.
I'm not saying they should, but I'm just saying I get where it is because, you know, it's harder to find a good connection, especially as a woman. And then you and I have talked about this. I feel like women get confused where they're like, oh, but if I give him what he wants, he'll like me more, right? Like no woman is actively saying that, but in her mind, she's
That's
like,
what she's thinking,
he wants to have sex with me. You know, if I give him sex, you know, then he'll like me more because I gave him what he wanted.
Well, and the thing about that is what I've told women in the past when I've coached on this is you don't have to sleep with the guy, but
just show him a boob.
That's just your tactics. But
Mom, Dad, I hope you're not watching this.
There you go. But no, you just, but show him that you want to. Right. But
like
then
flirt, be seductive, you know, without like going all the way.
Don't just straight shut him down. Because if you just straight shut him down, he's not going to come back. I mean, he's like, he's just going to feel rejected.
No, you
But
can
if he
be
feels
flirty.
like, oh, I really want to, I can't do it. Like you're tempting me, and then you don't. And then now he feels like, well, one, you've dangled the carrot a little bit better because now it's like, you know, it's like you know when you're fishing
cake.
and you're trying to catch, you're not just like, Psh, all right, fish. Like you're not getting that worm. Like you got to kind of like make sure it's following the worm, and
it's
then
a
you
lure
get the
for a reason. You lure him in.
Yeah, you don't just yank it away. The fish is like chase it. Then no, it's not going to happen. So that's kind
depends on what kind of fish, but that's the fisher woman in me. I'm just kidding, but I know what you mean though. Like you can still be flirty. You don't have to be like prudish or like rude about it, you know, like, no, I'm not gonna have sex with you. Like, you know, especially if you like the guy, you should flirt. You should be like seductive, like, oh, like
make him think it might still happen tonight. But then you know it's not. But you know what I'm saying? Like, use your strategy. Like, it's okay to, like, again, people get all upset about this stuff. It's like, oh, it's manipulation. It's you're playing games. I don't like games. And it's like, no, love is a game. I'm sorry. It's just there's strategy to it, and you gotta at the beginning. Now, after you get into a relationship, or you drop the BS, you get to a deeper level of intimacy, but you got to navigate it first, and that's okay to navigate.
You don't know what.
Better than